Thanks, Joe. So we'll do a bit deeper dive of an intro. I'm Eric, here at Media.Monks, head up the entertainment category, and we define that very broadly. It's original content on the TV film side, but games, XR, all the fun acronyms. And today I'm getting to chat with someone. I have a very cool job, but I think Jordan possibly has the job that I would want to take and swap with. So I'm very excited by this conversation, and I particularly think it's going to be a meaningful conversation given the sort of the topic of the day with the metaverse. And so, Jordan, if you can just take a minute and just kind of introduce yourself and sort of give us some of your background, I think would be really, really helpful.
Sure. Hey, everybody, I'm Jordan Sherman. I'm the CEO at Immortals. Immortals is a professional esports organization. We own and operate professional video game teams in some of the biggest leagues in the world. For example, my Zoom background, which I was messing around with, this is League of Legends. So in the US League of Legends League, there's 10 franchise locations, and we own and operate one of those 10 franchises. We compete across different games all over the world in different leagues owned by publishers. We think that, as we talk about the metaverse, that gaming is really one of the initial entries into the metaverse and will have a huge part in really deciding and sculpting the landscape going forward. But my background has always been business, social, traditional sports, and esports. I worked in Major League Baseball for 6.5 years, starting in Major League Baseball Advanced Media. I started in Facebook gaming and specifically helping brands enter the Facebook gaming space. Then I kind of transitioned over into working on different promotions that really were based on Twitter and on Instagram. So I ran something called the Dominono, which is with Domino's that I'll tell you guys about, but it was free pizza whenever a no-hitter happens in Major League Baseball, but all happening online and in their mobile app. From there, I went to the NBA. I worked for the LA Clippers for 2 years on the sponsorship side. And then after the Clippers, I went to Gen G Esports, which was a large esports company, still around, a rival of my current company, with offices in Korea, China, and Los Angeles. And we started to see really all the underlying trends of the metaverse starting to happen and took an aggressive stance, not only with our pro teams, but really leaning into games like Minecraft, Roblox, Animal Crossing, and helping different brands enter the gaming space through really opportunities that are more reflective of themselves. So for example, another thing that we did was we launched the first all-women's Fortnite team, which Bumble came on as the team entitlement sponsor and was a 3-year partner. It was their first ever integration into gaming. And then they did a lot of things on their end within their app to actually help make gaming part of the way that you connect with people for dating, for friendship, and for mentorship. So my entire career has been across this landscape of sports, entertainment, esports, branding, technology, and I'm really excited to be in my current position, helping lead Immortals in this next phase.
It's a really, really exciting space you were in. And I know we connected beforehand, and I think we share a lot of similar views on how games and gaming really is sort of the first entry to the metaverse for a lot of people. But before we sort of get into that, can we just take a step back and just sort of define the phrase? Because it gets thrown around a lot, I think, right now, what the metaverse is. And I think I have a particular lens. I know a lot of the speakers on this conference had sort of different takes on what it is. But given where gaming sits in the metaverse, I'm very curious, how would you describe the metaverse to someone that's just hearing the term for the first time?
Yeah, well, I'm okay with the broadness and vagueness of the term because esports of itself is really like the most broad. Everybody has a different definition for like what esports and gaming could be. So I've been just kind of like living in that universe, and I think probably the metaverse will be there too. So I would say, just like esports and gaming, first things first, it's like it's not scary. Like 95, I believe like 95% of the things that seem really scary actually aren't bad. You can kind of figure them out. Everyone else in human history has. And we're going to get there with gaming and esports and metaverse. I think the long-term stuff of like, okay, I go to work by putting on a headset and I see one of my office mates and I actually am making purchases and buying clothes for my avatar and working in this virtual world. Maybe it gets there in a little bit. Seems kind of like the technology is a little bit further down the line. I heard Microsoft say the other day that like Minecraft and Halo is basically the 2D version of the metaverse. And then this future, we put on the headset, that's kind of more like the future 3D. So I think where we are now and where we've been and where gaming really plays a place is like really even back to like the early 2000s with PlayStation and Xbox, where you could play online against someone through the Xbox or PlayStation network through the internet. And as we've evolved, I think what we found is that whether it's streamers, gaming influencers, pro players, there are already people who are making a living and really making an impact through what we would describe as the metaverse, which is really an online economy or an online system of competition when it comes to gaming. We did some unique activations, which I can show you guys about Minecraft. And what I think is really fun for brands is like, this is a whole new place to experience your own brand, but do so from an area of strength. For example, with Bumble, when we did the all women's Fortnite team, it really made sense that Bumble kind of came on because it stayed true to like their North Star values of women's empowerment and helping create a system online where men and women were equal. And I think a lot of brands like should be using the metaverse as an opportunity, not necessarily to pursue what Bumble did, that's really core to Bumble's core philosophy, but to pursue what's really true to themselves. So for example, one thing that we did with the pen relays during COVID was pen relays came to us and said, COVID is shutting down the pen relays. We're not gonna be able to do anything. So what we did is we actually rebuilt the pen relays inside the game of Minecraft. So can I share my screen on this? Actually, I think I can. Because I just want to show the visual because I think it'll really explain it well. But we rebuilt Franklin Field inside Minecraft, and we let people actually come in and play in the pen relays. And these are people who are from all over the country, all over the world, really, and they are participating in relay races within the game. And I thought that was super fun and unique because it gave pen relays, it was live streamed on Twitch, it gave pen relays the opportunity to reimagine themselves. And the reason why it worked is because it wasn't a big deviation. It wasn't pen relays in Fortnite or pen relays in Call of Duty. It was actually recreating what the pen relays is in the metaverse. And that opened them up to attract a whole new audience.
Are you able to share your screen?
Yeah, let me see. Give me one second.
It's kind of fun to see it.
Here we go. Yeah, got it. So this is like an article about it. So you can see this is actually within the game of Minecraft. We rebuilt Franklin Field, which is where Penn Stadium is. And then people said, okay, we had a Discord server and we actually aligned people just like how the relays does, like high school boys, high school girls, mixed boys and girls, college, alumni. And you could participate in these events and the whole thing was live streamed. So what we did was we got like famous Olympians and people who ran in the pen relays, such as Carl Lewis, to come on as broadcasters during the event. So even though they didn't know the first thing about Minecraft in some cases, they were connected to Penn and to the pen relays. And they came on, they talked about it, they talked about track and field, they talked about their experience. It was like a hangout. And we had winners, we had medals and podiums. And then some of the fun stuff that was happening was that the different Minecraft people who were showing up actually were like taking selfies inside the game and like posting it on Twitter. And as part of this, we had two sponsors. So Toyota was a sponsor and the Marines were a sponsor. And so we built out a little spot for like a Marines museum, which doesn't actually exist in real life next to Franklin Field, but we built it in the video game. And they had their own people in the Discord, not only playing in the pen relays themselves, but actually an opportunity to connect. So I think what's cool about brands is not just being able to create these experiences, but actually participate alongside them as well.
I think this is foundational. I see more and more of these types of activations happening where you kind of recreate, but not just recreate and extend a physical event into digital. And it sounds like you've been doing this for quite a while. How do you, maybe there's some brands that are maybe more skeptical or slower to take on some of these types of initiatives. How do you pitch that to brands? How do you get them interested in going sort of digital or, putting a digital layer to something that might be more physical? I would love to hear how you talk to brands.
Yeah, so maybe I could talk about the Domino's one as a good example. So this is kind of something we do with MLB. But the idea, where we always start, if we can, if the brand's comfortable, is like, just show us your typical standard marketing strategy. what is your 2022 strategy? Don't make it necessarily for esports or anything like that. Like, let's just see what you have and where we can actually extend it and make it into esports or gaming or metaverse or social. So this is just one example for MLB, which I think is relevant, which is Domino's is very focused and still is on being a tech company and mobile ordering and participating in conversation. And what they said was, we're a tech company, but we're looking to potentially use our name and become a part of something that's happening in the real world. And what we saw on Twitter was every time, so a no-hitter in baseball is when a pitcher throws and there's no hits throughout the whole game. And the anticipation builds to the 7th inning, 8th inning, and then there's a hit or not hit towards the end. So we were seeing in this social media chatter around no hitters or the word no. So we went to Domino's. We said, we know you're tech focused. We know you're monitoring on social. What if we created a concept called the Domino No, where when there's a no hitter in baseball, we give away 20,000 free pizzas, and everybody will be using the hashtag. They'll be tweeting about it. They'll be talking about it. You'll be integrated into the game, and it'll all be back through your mobile app and through ordering online. So we created a system, kind of a silly word, but like it caught on, and we created a system that allowed them to participate in Major League Baseball in a way they had never had before, but still being really true to their values and providing something to the fans, which is the free pizza. So this thing like completely took off. We outsold the pizzas in 2 minutes. One time the server broke. Like, it just kind of took on a life of its own, where fans expected every time there's no hitter, an opportunity to get a Domino No. So I was really proud of this one because I think it is really the intersection of all these different things we've been talking about.
I think this is such a smart kind of twist on something that was already kind of present, and just, sort of taking it to a next sort of interactive and digital level. I'm curious with, you were quoted a couple of years ago, I think it was the Daily Mail, saying that esports basically has no cap in terms of revenue and partnerships and growth. I think we're, as a lot of outsiders to gaming, it seems very true. It's just a juggernaut of an industry that's growing, not just in popularity, but in, revenue. And I want to sort of pick your brain on, where do you see that going? Like, how are brands getting into it? What are the new sort of revenue streams and sponsorship deals that are happening? Can you just kind of talk about that business sort of in general and where you see it going?
Yeah, well, there's multiple ways. I think about, like, to truly simplify it, I would say for esports and gaming, there's kind of 2 paths to go in. The first is just buying media. So that would be your typical, we have a video ad buy. We recognize that this is an important demo. We're going to buy through an esports team or through Twitch or through YouTube. And we just want the eyeballs and the exposure, and it's a media buy. And that's not a bad strategy. It's a way of getting in front of the consumers, and activating, similar to how you might on YouTube or ESPN. Then there's a second path, which is like, okay, we're going to go a little bit deeper into this, and we actually want to help participate in the community and build something in a way that's more closely tied to what we do. So for example, on that, like, we just recently launched, so Nitto Tire is a new partner of ours, and I'll just share this too. Like, their whole thing was fueled by enthusiasts. So what they want to do is showcase like tire enthusiasts and gaming enthusiasts. And like, there's no such thing, there's an overlap. Like, our whole thing is about auto. And what we kind of showcased to them was, there's actually 2 areas of, if you want to go into enthusiasm and enthusiasts, there's 2 areas of the esports industry that you could be part of. And it's not necessarily about like, okay, I'm going to do a jersey patch sponsorship, or I'm going to do a league partnership. It's, let's get into the core of, and the ethos of what you are. So what do enthusiasts get into? For us, we thought it would be fan art and the overlap of gaming influencers who actually love cars. So here's kind of an example of the fan art that we did. And we're kind of showcasing, because fans, believe it or not, esports, fans spend like a ton of time like drawing pictures and like doing things on Canva for like their favorite streamers and gamers. So we're launching this whole fan art vertical with Nitto. We took the first steps to kind of show like an example of what this can look for. And what I think is really cool about that was, it's not like fan art was like something that we had on the shelf that like we brought down and we're like, hey, Nitto, we've been thinking for years about this fan art concept. It was a true representation of what they want for people who are enthusiasts, people who love a product, how they go above and beyond to showcase that love. And now we're working with different gaming influencers to kind of create gaming rigs and auto experiences to showcase the overlap. I think where a lot of people kind of get lost a little bit is they assume that like gamers are gamers. That's like the only thing they like to do, and that's it. And I think people get lost in the metaverse element too. It's like, we got to be metaverse. That's all these people are. And I think the truth is, what we're finding is that gaming is just kind of like a piece of your personality, and that the different amounts of people that we find who are entering the gaming space are well-rounded and interested in multiple things. And I say that because I think it's important for brands to realize that like there's such a large majority of your fans or your followers that are already gamers and identify as gamers. They just maybe don't even know it. And it can be anywhere from like League of Legends on one side of the spectrum to Candy Crush on the other side of the spectrum. So just kind of acknowledging, okay, our fans are gamers, and in no way does that take away from them being fans of us. In fact, if we can unlock gaming to unlock like that enthusiast side of them, or showcase that like we understand that they're gamers and are trying to meet them on their level, that's kind of like what we see as the smart brands entering the space, what they're able to do kind of three-dimensionally to make a difference and engage their following and grow. Like, I guess even in shorthand, every brand can value and grow from leveraging gaming concepts and principles.
I think that's really, really smart. I feel like it's sort of been implied through a lot of the conversation, a lot of the topics you're discussing, but it feels like your background in sort of traditional sports or offline sports, however you want to describe it, is pretty impactful or pretty applicable to now your role and just, esports more generally. And so I'd love to talk about that sort of relationship, or that bridge, how similar or dissimilar those things are, and particularly in how brands or audiences engage with traditional sports versus esports. Can you just
Sure
on that?
So I think there's a couple of things happening on multiple levels. So, and I grew up like really wanting to work in sports. I worked at MLB and worked at the Clippers. I had kind of an aha moment. We invited a client to a Clippers game, and he brought his son, who's like 10 years old. And the son goes to me, he goes, "Why can't I buy a Steph Curry jersey here?" And I was like, this is a Clippers game. Why would we be selling a Steph Curry jersey? And he's like, "Well, I want a Steph Curry jersey." And I was like, okay, I'm kind of seeing like fandom shift a little bit. Whereas like the idea of growing up, it's like, you like your local team, you always root for them, no matter what, die hard, like there's no outside way. And you're kind of seeing fandom shift, not only to players, but also to, I want what I want and I want it now. And I think for traditional sports teams, MLB just finished their World Series, and now they're going to have a long off season. How do you engage this next generation of fan when they can just go on to Twitch, or they can fire up their Xbox or PlayStation and have exactly what they want now? And I think the metaverse is going to try to fill in that void too, where it's like, whatever you want, whenever you want, put on the headset and let's go. And while traditional sports, I think are already kind of doing some really interesting things with Oculus, and like being able to sit courtside and watch a game with a friend who's like 1,000 miles away. Like, I think that would be a really cool, unique experience. I'm interested to see how traditional sports kind of blends that gap. What I see them doing is in the NFT space, for example, is really interesting. I think the betting space is somewhat interesting, kind of go back and forth on it. But overall, I think what you're going to see from traditional sports leagues and teams is acknowledging, okay, there's a different type of fan. There's a different type of on-demand service we need when we're off season. And there's a different way we need to engage. We can't just bank on the fact that like we're here, we've been here forever. People have parents who like are going to tell their kids to root for these teams, and we're just going to move forward with it. And I think it's super exciting because you're going to see teams and leagues really try non-traditional ways. Like when I was at the Clippers, we worked on this project called Court Vision, which I think is super exciting. It basically uses software in the cameras at Staples Center to showcase live stats and information. It's very similar to AWS StatCast, which is a big part of NFL, which showcases like when a player shoots, what's the % chance that shot goes in. And the augmentation of stats, data analytics over gameplay is a unique way I think people will look at traditional sports. They had this back in the 90s with like the glow puck, and like that. I think that is like probably initial version 1 of this, but probably going to come back. So I think you'll see traditional sports really try to extend itself in those ways, really out of necessity, and also out of realizing that the in-game experience is going to be limited to how many people can actually be there, and truly limited to what type of experience they can have.
I love the implications of that, how what's happening in the metaverse and with esports is starting to drive or sort of educate traditional sports. Is it also working in the opposite direction? Is what traditional sports has done to build fandoms and whatnot, is that also cross-pollinating to esports? And esports, it's been around a few decades now, but it's still maturing, at least in sort of a mainstream eye to a lot of people. And like, is it taking on some of traditional sports, tips, I guess?
So I think, are you an NBA fan?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just my theory, but I think the NBA 2K League and NBA 2K as a game has changed the way the NBA is played. You could not shoot the ball from as far away as like LeBron and Trae Young and these other players are shooting and not get benched ever in the history before the NBA. It would be absurd. But like the way video games are being played, it's like everybody on the outside, shoot from wherever. It's just kind of taken over. And I think in many ways it's actually good. I think you kind of see in the NFL, people are going for it on fourth down more often. And like the leveraging of analytics. A lot of that really is so closely tied to video games and the way people are actually playing this out and then taking that into real world. So I think that's like super exciting and awesome to see. And then on the flip side, how is traditional sports affecting esports? I think the NBA 2K League is a really great example too. They do an awesome draft, and it might sound silly, it might sound to some people, but like, I think it's one of the coolest things that happen in esports is they have a commissioner of the NBA 2K League. They have a draft pool. They do it just like the NBA does. They call the person up who gets drafted. They put on a hat. They give the commissioner a hug. They tell their life story. And for these people, and it's true, they are a pro and they're drafted by an NBA team and they're moving to that city to be part of it. And they're playing in this in-arena format. And, the COVID element has helped gaming in terms of like more mainstream, more streaming, et cetera. But it's hurt gaming in the sense of so much of this is like the in-person stadium feel to it. Like at Overwatch League, there's thunder stakes and people dressed up like cosplay. And it's like this weird, fun mixture of like Comic-Con meets the Super Bowl. And it's going to kind of get back there. And I think that's where esports takes a lot from traditional sports, which is going to be like the excitement and in person. And then I think what traditional sports takes from esports is the gameplay, the fandom, and how you actually express it to get more people involved.
It's funny, I never made that connection, but you're totally right. The gameplay of the NBA and football has definitely taken on hints of a video game in terms of like just more dynamism and more risk taking, being data driven, and just sort of going for it and just playing sort of full out. I feel like just even a handful of years ago, the leagues were much more conservative in their play, right? And so you're seeing that sort of wildness of a video game.
Nobody plays Madden and like runs the ball every play, or like plays 2K and like posts up. People play loose and free and dynamic, and you're seeing that happen in real life.
That's wonderful. I think we're getting to the last 10 or so minutes, and just definitely want to open it up for questions. If anybody wants to throw a question in the chat or the Q&A, feel free to hit us up. So Jordan, I think another aspect I want to kind of hit on is the impact of like social media. Obviously, I think esports is heavily social media driven, Twitch and live streams. But can you talk about how the live stream world and brands sort of interplay now, and how much a part of that is, how much that is a part of the business, and also, how the leagues or the players themselves are building their own fan bases through social media and whatnot. Can you sort of talk about that impact?
Sure. So there's a whole like host of ways to kind of take it. So if you think about there's gamers that are pros and there's gamers that are influencers. The main difference is if you're a pro, it's really like it's on a team. You have a coach, you have practice, you have scrimmages, like you are really focused. It's a full-time effort on getting better at the game, working with your team and being able to excel. at the highest level with honestly a ton of pressure. If you're an influencer, there's pressure, but it's a different type of pressure. It's about being consistent. It's about working with your community. It's about being entertaining and creating a world that people actually want to engage with you and spend time with you. Both are interesting, unique, different paths. Some people transition from one side of the business to the other. And I find what's like really kind of crazy about the way we go is that like I speak at conferences all the time to kids, to high schools, to colleges, and people ask me like, who are my top 10 streamers? As if it's like, who are my top 10 NBA players? And they'll give me their top 10. Some people like write it down and like give it to me or send it to me afterwards. And they built real connections with these streamers. So why is that? I think it's not only are these people talented and they know their community and they're actively thinking about how to be engaging, but they're always on, they're accessible, and they've developed these real personal relationships with these people through a very formidable time of their life when they're going through high school, college, early adulthood, etc. So the streaming industry, I think, is something that's going to be here to stay. It's part of obviously like the metaverse. I'm not like setting the world ablaze by saying that, but just trying to explain the psychology a little bit for understanding that like when people sit down and instead of maybe watching a TV show or going on some type of like digital format on Snapchat or Instagram stories, they watch streaming, not just for it's not just about the gameplay, because a lot of times people don't even game, it's just like a just chatting, but really it's about like the connection to the individual. So like we're working with athletes, for example, and there's a ton of athletes who stream, but the best ones who really care about the community, they're like, well, we actually want to help. We want to do like Monday motivation, or we want to help people like get through the things that they're going through. And that to me is like amazing access that growing up, if you had a favorite athlete, there was no possibility for you to ever connect with them. Maybe if you're super lucky, they can like sign a hat and like throw it to you. But now like through Twitch and streaming, especially during things like Monday motivation or just chatting, you can actually go on chat and have them answer and like really build this unique element. So I think that's another great example of the way like gaming principles are transcending into traditional sports, is because it gives a medium for fan athlete connection that doesn't have to go through the media or through security. So if I was a brand, that scenario where I would really want to play in is like, if I'm into sports and I don't even have to be into gaming. I just have to be into like digital technology and gaming principles. How can I actually create a fan experience that connects them to athletes in a unique way where they can really talk in a safe space and get something that's well developed, that's not like a nuisance of like, show up to this event, sign a million things, like have a million kind of empty conversations. Let's actually do this in a way that people get things out of it.
It's going to bring it back sort of to the metaverse here, because I feel like what you hit upon with this and the sort of social media, I think you're right. And we're not setting the world ablaze, but I think it is yet another proof that the metaverse is here, and brands are engaging with it, users are engaging it. I think that level of intimacy is hugely important, or sort of like bi-directional communication with their fans and vice versa. Are you seeing that start to impact the leagues themselves, like, and or esports themselves in terms of like trends or getting feedback from the users, in how the leagues compete or set up or communicate, to the broader public? Like, how is that bi-directional chat sort of impacting some of the teams you're working with?
So let me answer it by kind of showing something that I think is one more thing that I think is really cool. So we did this. A lot of brands are hesitant about this because this is something we do with Conoco. They're like, no one's going to like it. They're going to hate it. They're going to troll us and they're going to do bad things to us. And it's actually like the complete opposite. Like this is an example we did. We called it Rivalry between University of Colorado and Montana. And we said, build your campus in Minecraft, but also put in a Conoco gas station. And we're going to bring in Minecraft influencers and judge who did the best example. And like, it kind of goes amazing and we're so happy. But to be honest, like build a gas station is probably one of the like least exciting things that you could build in addition to your campus. But if you look at like the detail and the authenticity, that like these are like actual students, part of this new world ecosystem that went and spent time to build this. Like this thing takes a lot of time to build. They did it, and they did an amazing job, and they did it because like they love it, and Conoco coming into the space brings them like legitimacy and establishes that like this is okay to do. So something that like I really try to tell people all the time, especially in gaming and esports and metaverse, like it's so early right now. The bar is actually really low. And if you can kind of get in and provide value, even if it's something really small to this audience, or even if it's just like a stamp of approval of like, we see you, we hear you, this is something that like we are behind, you're going to get such goodwill, and they're not going to troll you. They're not going to hate on it. When they troll, when they hate is when you come in and like you're phony or fake, or you try to take advantage of something that you don't have like a key thing towards. So that's what I really like try to explain to brands all the time is like, if it's done in a way that's true to who you are and people can understand it in a sentence and you provide them value, it's going to do really, really well. And it's going to set you up for a space, because like what I would be thinking of if I was a brand, whether I'm going to work in the metaverse or gaming or esports, whatever, is I'd be like, 1 year from now, do I have a place here? What am I? And if your place is media buying, okay, we just buy against it, good. If your place is, we do this thing in Minecraft, or we do this thing in Roblox, or we activate with these influencers, that's good, because all that is like a foundation. I don't think you need to have like the world's best strategy ever. But where you can get in trouble is that because the stuff moves so fast, you don't do anything for a year from now, and then all of a sudden it's the Super Bowl or it's the League of Legends World Championships, and not only has the price to enter gone way up, you have no built-in credibility with the audience because you've never done anything. So that's what I think is the risk for brands who aren't really sure what to do right now. It's like, get in now while the barrier to entry is low and when you can learn, versus later, which is like, as these things have scaled, there's already partners that are way ahead. It's going to cost more and could potentially fall more flat.
Yeah, I believe it is a community that requires a more authentic approach, right? This is not a carpet bomb sort of marketing vertical. You know, you got to come in authentically and know the community, which sort of speaks to the question that was just dropped in the chat. And I think this sort of expands upon something you were just discussing a moment ago. And that's about memories and connections in the metaverse or in XR, VR more generally, that these aren't, you know, the cynics would say these aren't real connections, you know, that connections made online or in virtual spaces aren't as meaningful or real as IRL, you know, face-to-face personal connections. And you touched upon it earlier, but maybe expand upon that a little bit. And
yeah, so I do this trick. Anybody who's listening can do it too. If I feel like there's like skeptics in the room or people don't know, I'll kind of start a meeting and I'll be like, just indulge me for a sec. If everybody can just like close their eyes and remember like one of their first gaming experiences. And then I like pause like 30 seconds. And I ask, is anybody comfortable to share what they said, what they thought about it? And I mean, you could try it. Everyone says the same thing. It's like, it's family, it's holidays, it's being a kid, it's playing with your sibling, it's like being social, it's making a friend. Like all these people, we've all, most of us, I'm assuming, have been alive at the time when there's video games. Maybe some people have been alive pre-video games, but you know, we all kind of had these experiences through gaming that maybe isn't necessarily about putting on a headset and making money or showing up to an office, but it's about like Christmas Day, I got a system, I went down in the basement with my brother and sister, and like we had this really special thing. And it could be Duck Hunt or Mario, it doesn't have to be Xbox. So I kind of push back a little bit about like, oh, these aren't real experiences, stuff like that, because I really think that the majority of people have already had an experience through gaming or esports or connection. They just don't think of it through that lens because it feels like it was too low tech or too long ago. And what I see all the time, you know, there's this really big push in esports and gaming to be like LA and lifestyle and hip and cool. And there's some brands, other esports companies that do that so well and they're amazing. But everything I tell to the team at Immortals and all of our people is like, there's a bigger world out there for people who don't identify with that. And that's the area we want to focus on. Like we want to help people be social, make friends, feel accepted, become empowered, feel like they have a place. Like that's where I think the majority of gamers are today. It's still a lot of like underground communities. So I think I know, I mean, I live this every day. Like I know that there's people having like real experiences through gaming on the daily, and it's tangible.
It is. I don't think you can separate memories in that way. These are real. All the memories are real. All the interactions are real, and it's to the individual to make them real. If they truly believe and are feeling connected to this person through whatever medium, that's a real connection. If the emotions are there. So we've spoken a lot about sort of the brands and the current state of the art, I guess, or state of play, so to say. I'm very curious, what's your take on sort of what's coming down the future, down the pike, now with like all this hype around the metaverse and the announcements just over the last couple of weeks, like how is this going to impact your industry or gaming more generally, over say the next 3 to 5 years? What do you see sort of happening?
Yeah, so we're there's going to be I think a ton is going to happen. We actually just announced we're taking our company out of LA and moving it to the Great Lakes, because I think what we're finding, especially as part of the metaverse conversation, is just the area of opportunity is going to exist beyond just like certain areas of the country. Like this is being built specifically so people all over the world can connect in more efficient, faster, safer ways, basically. So I think what we're looking forward to seeing is kind of taking this to the next level and taking gaming beyond. You have to be in LA, or you have to have 1 billion followers, or you have to look a certain way, or you have to play a certain game, or you have to be a certain gender. Like kind of the democratization of gaming and esports and metaverse, that's really like where we want to be and kind of activate in that sense. And what we're finding is like, if you just kind of peel the onion back a little bit on people, you can really get a lot for what's going to happen. So every step that we take, like for example, Progressive is one of our leading partners in League of Legends, and they got a taste of it for this year. We did a ton of activations, and it's auto insurance. I mean, it's really interesting to see auto home, boat. It's interesting to see the different types of brands out there that can be a little bit more like into it and risk taking. And it's not necessarily just the like headphone companies and the computer companies and the people who are like quote unquote endemic. So I think what you're going to see is like smart, forward thinking, technology driven companies seeing this space as like, this is the next area for us to build with a new generation. And that's what I'm really excited for.
Wonderful. I think they're wrapping us here. So Jordan, it's been a pleasure. Like I said, at the top of the call or the top of the conversation, you're in an industry I'm very envious of. Very few people I would want to swap hats with. So thanks for giving us your time today. And I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks.